I need to find a place where I can buy some. Oh, we're live.
All right. We are live. All right. Hello, NextOppSocial family. Welcome to another live chat discussion here on the NextOppSocial channel. As always, I'm Rachel Wright Wilson, and I'm joined by Joanne Buford. And today we're talking about pivoting, which if you've watched even just a few of these discussions and interviews this year, you know that that's our theme a little bit. But so why are we talking about it again? Well, I really wanted to have a space to address the struggles that go along with this pressure to pivot, especially if you're here at the end of 2020, which we are. We're in December, only a few more weeks. And know that you cannot sustain another, I mean, I don't even want to say a whole year, a few more months, 6 months of business this way, right? How do you pivot? What do you do when you can't figure out how to pivot? What do you do when your business feels stuck? So we're going to talk more about that today. But before we jump into it, if you're watching with us here, either live on the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our channel so you never miss an interview, a live, or any of the incredible discussions we have here on NextOppSocial. So there's a real sense of purpose and joy with being in business for yourself when you're a business owner or an entrepreneur. For the most part, you're in control of your life, of your future, of your circumstances. And that's a huge power and energy shift that happens when that appears and you realize that. But there's also the flip side. Everything comes down to you, right? The decisions, the weight of the responsibility, and huge waves of overwhelm and stress can hit you when you least expect it. So especially this year, we have talked ad nauseum about pivoting and shifting your business, not just to survive, but to thrive, right? And we've given you tips in a billion different videos on what the outcome of pivoting can look like or what steps you can take to actually pivot, right? But what about those times when you are stuck? You are stuck in the overwhelm. You are stuck under the weight of all that, right? You know that you can't continue this way. You know that you need to pivot, but you can't figure out how to start or where to start. So I'm going to shift over to Joanne now because I know he's got thoughts on this.
I thought when this topic was broached, I thought it was so ironic for a couple of reasons, or should I say even apropos, right? Number one, you had to shut down the transpired. So particularly for our Michiganders and our Detroiters who are listening, to have a second shutdown, it's impacting business owners in such a dramatic way. Mm-hmm. And it's forcing a lot of individuals to pivot who had finally taken a moment to exhale, felt like things were going, there was some normalcy being created, right? Some predictability in terms of what was to be expected. And then all of a sudden we had to shift again. And so I've been having conversations with business owners who, quite frankly, the second shift hit it, right? It was the death knell for them. It was bad enough in the beginning. They had a moment to breathe and kind of right the ship and figure out what was next. And then a complete shutdown again for most businesses. That's what it's been. And it was like, okay, what do I do now, right? And I've also been having conversations with individuals who maybe they weren't forced to shut down, but they have reached a point where they just feel burnt out. And they feel like they need to do something different altogether because of that as well. And so, I've taken a real untraditional approach to answering this question with individuals whom I work with oftentimes. And the question I oftentimes ask is, what's the end game? And for me, it's always interesting to see people get a little bit, not necessarily frustrated, but it's like, I didn't think about that. But what's the end game, right? You said something earlier, Shelley, during our last episode, where the purpose of being an entrepreneur and working hard is not to work hard, right? It's to achieve some type of lifestyle. It's to achieve goals. It's to curate the life that you want, right? Otherwise, you can just go get a job and let somebody else dictate to you when you can go to the bathroom on vacation or when you can spend time with your family, right? Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why most individuals, I believe, choose entrepreneurship is so they can be curators. And I think we lose sight of that, right? We're so busy building our businesses, our endeavors. And, you know, if you have a lot of talent and a lot of energy, you start to stratify your efforts as well. And you lose sight of what am I doing this for in the first place? And I think that's the most important question. Because I just firmly believe you can't put your life's energies behind something, at least not for an extended period of time. You can't put it behind a compromise. And so if you're feeling some kind of way about your business, maybe it's time for you to ask yourself, what are you really taking aim at? 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? What does the end game look like for you? How do you want to be living? What do you want to be driving? What do you want to be living in? Where do you want to be vacationing? What type of conversations and type of relationships do you want to have? Whether it be family, friends, peers, et cetera, right? If you could paint the perfect picture, your perfect day or days, what would that look like? And if you're looking at your business that you're involved in now, and you don't see your business delivering that, then chances are that's where some of your malaise is coming from. Mm-hmm. It's not always about the things that are happening on the outside. Sometimes it's about what's happening on the inside, right? And so that's what I think about first and foremost, right? In terms of just getting your head right. You know, when was the last time you really sat down and asked yourself, you know, who do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Who do you want to be? When was the last time you asked yourself, what's the kind of work? And I ask myself this all the time. What's the nature of the work that I've done, or the things that I've accomplished, or those moments in business or in life that has brought me the greatest fulfillment, where I just feel like this is nirvana, like I just want to be here forever, right? What are those things? And then once you can kind of identify those things, ask yourself, okay, if I could make that thing part of my everyday existence, what would my life look like, right? Because here's the thing too, and I just posted this on LinkedIn. It's interesting, once again, we were having this conversation that, you know, most millionaires, my fellow entrepreneurs, don't fall for the subterfuge. Most entrepreneurs are not multimillionaires shaking it up at night, partying day and night, okay? Most successful entrepreneurs are not on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube posting the accoutrements of their success, smiling and showing you their steak and egg dinners and the latest piece of jewelry they bought or whoever they're hanging out with. That's not most entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs are simple, everyday people. Mm-hmm. But they have some really good, simple habits that they commit to on a daily basis, and it creates these extraordinary lifestyles. When I say extraordinary, it's just a step above ordinary, right? They have more agency, they have more control. They live life in a space of passion and power than most individuals. They're waking up, working, feeling like they're not working because they have to, but because they want to do the work they're doing, right? And it's those simple habits deliver them there. Well, what does that picture look like for you? And I firmly believe, I really do, when I think about 50% of the conversations I have, I firmly believe that if people took the time to ask themselves those questions, that would solve a lot of the malaise and the feeling of like I'm stuck and I don't know what I'm doing or should I be doing this. Answer that question for yourself, right? Let's not get attached to the work. Let's not get attached to the business per se. Mm-hmm. How about thinking about where you want this vehicle to take you and get attached to the life that you want to curate?
Yeah, I think it's super, I'm glad that you bring up as well, because I think it's super important to, when you're asking yourself that question, as you're saying that, like, it might not be what you're doing. It might not be what you've built. And while that can be a very hard realization to come to, and then also have a hard realization of like, so I have to build something else or I have to create something else. And that can also feel overwhelming and stressful. But if you understand that what you're currently doing isn't going to work, and that there is an easier way to get to what you want, not necessarily an easier way to get to any old outcome in general, but the outcome you're looking for, that should be encouraging for you to know that you don't have to keep in any way feeling this same level of struggle, right? I think it's important to, like, I hear a lot, I hear a lot of like advice that'll be like, you know, when you hit this point, the first thing you need to do is stop, right? Just stop what you're doing, right? Or right, because obviously it's not working or whatnot, or you're stopping to some degree. And I think that that's that can be a little negligent sometimes with this, especially like who has the luxury to just stop, right? It's a little bit of short-sighted advice. Some of us can't stop per se in the context of what people mean to stop, right? We can't necessarily cancel our meetings and not be able to take on certain clients or whatever. And you shouldn't feel shame around not being able to stop or that you can't stop. And there's this notion that if you eliminate all your distractions and all these things that are making it miserable, or put a stop to the madness, that suddenly you're just going to have this clear head and clearly see what you're able to do. But I just, especially right now, if we're, we want to make sure this is always topical, but especially right now in this year during a pandemic, a global traumatic event, right? Slowing down isn't a guarantee of bringing you vision, right? So I think it's important to remember that if you don't have the luxury to stop, if you don't have a moment where you feel like you can slow down, you still have to look at what you're doing and figuring out what you can cut out, what you can remove, right? That is truly not going to matter. And I think that kind of goes along with what you're saying, is like, there are things when it's really hard to look at, especially when you're in a state of burnout and overwhelm, to look at anything in your life and understand that these things you don't actually need to be doing, because that's like admitting that you didn't need to be doing it in the first place. And why did you get yourself into that point? So that's really, really hard. But so, it's not like this glamorous, like, okay, if you're overwhelmed, you need to stop and take a morning to yourself and go sit and outside in nature and write all your thoughts. It's like, the reality is that a lot of entrepreneurs and business, we don't have that luxury to just, I'm just going to do that tomorrow and it's all going to feel better. So there are areas and things that, like, if you're feeling that, in that way, in that overwhelm, in that stuckness, it's really hard to cut out and think through what needs to be eliminated, not just having to stop it, eliminated, but you have to, or else this cycle won't ever end.
Yeah, it's fascinating you mentioned that. I go in on this. Like I said, the W-2s out there proliferating their ideals and information as if they're 1099s, right? And the bottom line is, one of the key definitions of entrepreneurship is responsibility, right? And sometimes, like I said before, stopping, like a cold, hard stop, is not necessarily an option, right? When you have employees that are relying upon you, when you have vendors who are relying upon you, when you have clients who are relying upon you, family that's relying upon you. When you're a business owner, it's so interesting because people oftentimes go into entrepreneurship think they found freedom, right? Liberation from having to do things. No, those responsibilities increase tenfold, right? So that's what you're looking for. You might want to take a job, I don't know, as a librarian sitting down somewhere, or something, I don't know, but you're not going to find that in entrepreneurship oftentimes. But in any respect, I digress. So here's the thing that I think about too. Maybe it's time for you to take on a partner. I have several clients I'm working with now where they're fatigued, they're tired, they're worn out, they're feeling like they should quit. And I'm listening to them like, no, it's not that you should quit. It's time to take on a partner. It's time to take on somebody else to carry some of this weight. It's time for you to take on a part-time W-2 or a part-time 1099, get with your CPA, tax advisor, attorney to discuss that, right? But maybe it's time to do that. Maybe it's time for you to, quite frankly, start networking again, start interacting with people again. I participated in an event 2 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, totally unplanned, unanticipated. Someone who have a high degree of respect and regard for informed me about a seminar that was taking place. And it was completely and utterly out of my jurisdiction or field of study or work, right, for the most part. And I received so many phenomenal ideas. I was able to glean so much perspective just listening to individuals. At the end of the day, the game is the game. Entrepreneurship is the entrepreneurship, right? There's certain success principles that are gonna scale across industry and across whatever endeavor you're involved in. And man, I just took like 4 or 5 pages of notes. And it was just so reinvigorating. And then the follow up with the professionals and entrepreneurs that were participating in that seminar, I went to LinkedIn and found and continued the discussion. It just gave me new energy. And that's something I would encourage entrepreneurs to consider as well, because of the pandemic and a lot of these quarantine-like conditions. Many of us are sitting up domiciled in our back caves, right? Or in our living rooms or wherever we're at. And we're not interacting with people the way that we should interact. I believe these quarantine circumstances are so unnatural.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot for someone like myself, that I do enjoy my alone time. I enjoy space to myself. I love that. But I will willingly admit that I don't believe this is natural. And it's hard for you to maintain enthusiasm. It's hard for you to maintain excitement if you're operating in a bubble with just yourself and maybe 2 or 3 the same other individuals. The things get stale, I guess is what I'm saying, right? And maybe it's time for you to do that. Maybe you're spending too much time doing work that you're not really cut to do. You're not maybe working in your space of power. And look, in the beginning, don't get it twisted. Sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do, right? In the beginning, especially if you're starting up, listen to this. Look, don't get it twisted. Listen to these gurus. You're going to do a lot of work that you don't want to do. You're going to do a lot of things you don't get paid for in the beginning. So later on, you be compensated for things you no longer have to do. So let's not take this too far. But you reach a point where you reach a certain altitude in your business where then you can begin to decide, okay, I'm going to delegate this. I'm going to find somebody else who's better suited to do this type of work, to handle this part of my business, right? I'm going to give up a little bit of agency here so I can be more effective. Because one thing that'll kill you too, particularly most entrepreneurs I know, especially in the beginning, we can be perfectionists. We want things done our way. We're always thinking about quality control and messaging and all this other stuff. And we want it done exactly the way we want it done, right? And that will burn you out too, right? Bring somebody else on that can do things differently, that will bring about a different result, bring on some new energy, some new lifeblood into your business, right? So many business owners, entrepreneurs I work with, they have so much difficulty with this. Look, football teams, basketball teams, orchestras, schools, your local Starbucks and Panera Bread, you know what they're doing all the time? They're introducing new lifeblood into their organizations. Some people call it recruiting. Some people call it hiring. You can call it whatever you want, right? You should be drafting new talent, new people around you all the time to kind of reinvigorate you and get some new ideals running through that cerebral cortex of yours, right? New blood. So that's something a little bit more practical, right? That I think about being stuck. And I'll say this and I'll press pause for a moment. Study your competition. Study your competition, right? I am not above doing that. I will find other entrepreneurs who are doing something similar to what I'm doing, or they're doing what I'm doing, or maybe they're fishing in the same waters, going after the same clients I'm going after. And I will jump online and I will sometimes I'll do a deep dive. I'll spend hours studying other people and taking notes and looking at the ideals and things that they're doing that I'm not doing. And I tell people, eat the fruit and spit out the seed. I'm not going to embark down a road of trying to adopt new skills that I'm not suited for. But if there's some things that are right within my reach or in my space of power that I know I can execute on, I'm on that like a heartbeat, right? I probably read, between my reading and looking at YouTube videos, I probably spent 3 hours studying my competition yesterday. And I cannot wait to execute on the things that I learned. I cannot wait, like I'm chomping at the bit. And it was just simple stuff, right? That I say, why didn't I think about this? Well, Maybe because I don't have the people around me to help stimulate some of this thought. Or maybe we don't do NextOppSocial enough. I don't know. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think that and it's the theme around what you were just talking about, that sometimes there's a different word for pivot, and the word is scale, right?
Yes.
That's also pivoting, right? So yes, we use the word pivot all the time, but pivoting looks like a lot of different things. And a lot of times, yeah, when you have hit that point of overwhelm, burnout, stress, and you're like, this isn't worth it anymore, a lot of times that's because this is the call that the universe is giving you to tell you that you have to actually scale. That's what is happening right now. Not because you're failing, not because it's not working, not because, especially if you're someone who is bringing in income, you're still getting leads, you're still like, the business is still running, and but you're seeing messages and going like, oh my God, I don't have time for all this. Well, that's not a sign for you to stop. That's not a sign for you to quit. That's a sign for you to scale. And truthfully, if you don't know how to scale or have never had to scale, just like with any other aspect of pivoting or whatnot, it's okay that you don't know. You just need to ask for help. You just need to ask someone who either has done it, that's their job, is to do that for you. I'll be honest too. Like we had Kira of All Things Business Solutions here, many months ago. But I have, we've been in contact this whole time, and I've been talking to her more recently of just like, I need to bring on a VA, right? And I need to bring on, I've hit a point in my business of overwhelm and stressfulness, but it's not because business isn't coming in. It's because too much business is coming in, and I can't keep up with this anymore. So all that means is that it's not that what I'm doing is not working. It's absolutely working. It's working, but it's, I have to get help, right? And I need to get help in the capacity of either having someone to help me do it, or someone else kind of like myself who can help me cut the fat of understanding what to get rid of and eliminate and streamline. And, again, the same words for pivot, streamline, scale, right? They're different words that mean this. They still mean you're still going to do that same sort of action. You have to make a change, right? But they're more positive word, less, or wide. I don't say pivot's a negative word, but I mean, like, it can feel like an overwhelming word. But yeah, absolutely. So sometimes the change is that you have to grow, right? You're expanding. And I also think, even going back to the first point, if scaling is going to allow you to get to that end game, to get to that vision, even if you didn't think that was how it was going to work even if you thought your vision was that you ran this all on your own or whatever, but if this is going to give you that time, to give you that freedom, to give you more income, whatever, because scaling is not just like, yes, there's a financial cost to it, but it's supposed to, when done right, it should bring you more money, period. So if scaling is going to get you closer to that vision, then absolutely you should be doing that too.
Yeah. And it's kind of me talking to myself a little bit here too, right? Don't be myopic. If nothing else, entrepreneurship, once again, is about solving problems. And we all know the axiom that's out there, right? Or the maxim that's out there. The only thing consistent in life is change, right? You have to be willing to change. You cannot be married to your systems. You cannot be married to your tactics. You can't be married to those things. Part of being an entrepreneur is being willing to look at the bottom line and saying, this ain't working. I need to do something different. You got to step out of your pride, right? For me, it was a small little adjustment that has made the biggest difference in my business recently. I was listening to a podcast. One of the podcasts I listen to from time to time is Yap, Young, and Profiting. I think that's what it is, by Hala Taha. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And it was just one little tiny suggestion that was made. I was listening to somebody else who utilizes LinkedIn just as frequently as I do. And, I post to LinkedIn probably once a day. That's what I was doing. And that got me to my 20,000 followers. It got me to regularly setting appointments and interacting with people on a regular basis. But I was starting to feel like I was getting diminishing returns. And I thought that I was doing enough. I really did once. I mean, that's more than 90% of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was listening to the podcast, and in the middle of the podcast, it just dawned on me. The person kept saying how she posts 2 to 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times, just that small little adjustment. So this past week, I made that adjustment. I now post about twice a day now, whereas before it was just once, or maybe even sometimes every other day. And my inbox is exploding, right? Now I'm waking up, and it's not just, wow, I got people reaching out to me. Now now I can cherry pick. Who's really promising? Who do I really want to chat with, right? Just the little tiny things that you can do, you can find, and I guess that's one of the things I would encourage people to do. If you're feeling stuck, once again, look, I listen to all kinds of podcasts, right? So I listen to wholesale and real estate podcasts. I listen to marketing podcasts. I listen to transportation podcasts, digital marketing podcasts. I listen to anything business, anything entrepreneur related. I'm listening to it throughout the course of a week because I just don't think good ideas discriminate, right? I listen to podcasts that are being distributed from overseas, right? Half the time I can only understand maybe 2 out of 3 words being said, right? But I'm listening to it because I know people are doing things elsewhere. That's, so, okay, so let's say you've made up your mind that I need to pivot, or maybe you need to do something different altogether, right? Maybe you need to take drastic action, right? This is an exercise I oftentimes encourage people to do. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Part of this exercise came from London Real, right? I was listening to London Real episodes. I was going hard and consuming a lot of their content 2-3 years ago. And it was some of the things they would say that really stuck with me. And it's a couple questions I would encourage people to ask themselves. Number one, ask yourself, what is it that you love doing? Or my spin on it is, what are the things that create like unrelenting passion in you, right? And it's usually 2 questions. What are the things that have made you mad? As crazy as it sounds, ask yourself, what are the things that have made you angry, that have made you upset? I mean, it just engenders a white hot frustration and anger when you think about it, right? For me, negritude. I'm just transparent. That burns at my core. Growing up in neighborhoods and seeing people who look like me, who worked hard, not winning, not succeeding, and seeing some of the systemic challenges, but also just seeing that the things that people didn't know that were hurting them, right? That burns me up to my core when I see individuals who share my hue, who have all the skills and talents and know-how in the world, and they're just effing up. And it's because of a lack of knowledge or a lack of information or some systemic. That motivates me more than anything, right? That's just one thing that makes me very angry and upset. When I see stuff like that, when I experience it myself, it doesn't shut me down, it gives me energy, right? Like the worst thing a racist person can do is just literally be racist. So he's like, all you can do is get a grin, and I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna outwork your ass. I'm gonna wear you out, right? The second thing that gives me energy is I like to see people win. I don't know what it is. From the time I was a teenager, I love to see people win. I enjoy seeing people win more than I like winning sometimes. I just love it. Pointing something out and saying, go do that, right? What are those things for you? Ask yourself those questions. The other thing that you should ask yourself and couple all this together is, what are the things that you're good at? And not the things that you believe you're good at. Go out and ask 30 people, because you need larger numbers to get to it, right? Some people say 5 or 10. No, I think you need to ask 30 people. What are you good at? What's the thing that they look at, listen to, and notice that you should do that, right? Do that for yourself. Survey people, verbally survey people, electronically. You know, a good way to survey people that people don't think about? Create a 30-minute clip Not the 2 minute, 5:20. No, no one's going to listen to that. Look, don't do it. 30-minute clip. Just saying, this is an ideal that I have, and just randomly send it to some people and see how they respond to it, right? Find out what you're good at. Next question you ask yourself is, okay, where is there a congruence between what you're passionate about and what you're good at? There should be some things that repeat themselves in those questions, right? And then what you do is you ask yourself, okay, what are the top 10 ways or top 20 ways, get out a pad of paper, top 10, 20 ways that you can monetize the things that you're also passionate about, but the things you're good at, the things that are together. How can you monetize them? And then pick the top 3. And implement that currently in your current business, or if you're thinking about pivoting to something else differently, do that, right? And beta test it, lean in. Figure out a service that you can offer. Sometimes you have to offer for free just to get feedback. Figure out a product. What's a challenge? What's a problem you can solve? What's something you can do of value that people will be willing to pay for? Do those things. And if these things are consistent with your current business, great. Thank God, right? But if you have to do something totally different altogether, then you gotta do what you gotta do, right? This is entrepreneurship. This ain't flag football. Sometimes you gotta get out there.
I mean, it's just life in general, right? Sometimes you gotta throw it all out to start over, and that's just what happens.
So those are some of the questions I'll pose.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan, especially with when answering those questions and doing those questions, of getting super, especially when you get to that point where you've got those top 3, is now bringing those down into the tiniest of steps, right? That you can. And like even your example of, right, with LinkedIn, right? You've just added one more post a day, right? Some people that's just a really small step. Yes, you have to think of what to say and how to say it or whatnot, but maybe you just take your original post and cut it in half and now it's 2 posts, right? And I feel like so much about what I do as a marketer is, and especially when I'm doing digital marketing strategy and consulting, is being the person who gives people permission to say that they can actually do less and do it better, right? It's not necessarily that you're adding on these giant tasks, right? Yeah, maybe you are going to do 2 LinkedIn posts, but maybe your first LinkedIn post was too long, and that's why nobody took action on it, because it was too much to digest, and that was just too much. But now we just created more content for you from the same idea, And so sometimes it is that too. It's taking just the smallest of steps, maintaining any level of consistency of it, right? Because that, I think, is also really important. And I think it's another reason why I see a lot of people hit that burnout and overwhelm stage, especially now, faster than they used to. That it's not because I don't think people are hardworking or they're not willing to put the effort, but that we live in a world where, again, Instagram is a highlight reel, Facebook's a highlight reel. We are consuming content of people's wins all the time, right? Or we're consuming content of people's success all the time. And that's the first thing people want to share is, oh, look how great I did, right? So it is really, really easy to think that, you've put in this work for whatever amount of time and it's not working and now you're burnt out, you got to stop, right? Because obviously you should have figured it out by now. It doesn't matter what you're building, even if it looks identical to what someone else has built, you should not make your timeline their timeline. It just doesn't, you don't live their life, they don't live your life. It's not the same thing. So, taking super, super tiny steps and maintaining consistency with those tiny steps, especially in businesses, has the power to work so much more for you in the long run. I think about, for myself, like, it's not like I have a bajillion followers on Instagram or whatever, but I've made it a very conscious effort for over years to put only quality content, even if that means that I'm not posting every day, right? And even though I'm at a point where I'm not posting very consistently on Instagram right now, people are still finding me from that quality of content. The people are still reaching out to me saying, oh, I watched this video, oh, I saw that, or I read this post, right? And yes, in the grand scheme of things, Instagram, like, we have to keep creating content to stay relevant on that platform. But anywhere you have put quality and consistent effort into something, it should come back and reward you. Like, that's just how that should work, you know? So super small, super tiny efforts. Yeah. Like making one post into 2 posts over, like, you're already seeing immediate results from that. But ideally that's going to have far more reaching long-term results.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And you hit something. Actually, you hit a couple things that triggered me as I was listening to you. But because it's come up a couple times about this idea of the difference between pivoting and stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to go in and be so transparent with people right now. Look, now's the time to be stepping on the pedal as an entrepreneur. It really is. Now, if you need to stop for a moment, okay, fine, because you feel like you're having a nervous breakdown, or just something just really isn't working at all. That's different. But you need to be stepping on the pedal right now in a major way. It's during socioeconomic upheavals like the one that we're participating in now. That's what we're in the midst of it, right? When you read about the Great Depression and the Great Recessions and havoc taking place, and we're in that right now. We're living through it. In other words, 30, 40 years now, people are going to be reading history books and talking about this period that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And what you find consistently, it's during these periods that people come up. It's during these periods that people really make serious strides to get ahead. And I want to sound the alarm as much as I possibly could and say, look, you need to develop a sense of urgency and do these things. I'm being real. You don't have a choice. Do it now, okay? Even if I'd rather you do something part-time, spare time, spend 5 hours a week doing whatever it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur than no time. But spend some time doing that, right? The other thing I was thinking about as you were talking, and I got like 4 or 5 things going on, just listening to you, 4 or 5 thoughts going through my head. But, the ideal that pivoting and scaling and growing and all these different synonyms that we use, right? What we're basically saying is just be flexible, be open-minded as much as possible, right? Open up your head space, whatever is required to do that. Get back in touch with the things that give you energy. Something that I've done from time to time. What is it? Is it West? No, it's East. No, it's West English Village, right? West Indian Village here in Detroit Metro. Every now and again, I'll go through that neighborhood, mm-hmm. and I'll look at those $1 million and $2 million homes. Mm-hmm. I remember taking a tour of one of those homes 2 years ago and walking in. What do you call that when it's for plants? I mean, my brain's really messed up right now. It wasn't an aquarium for fish. It was an aquarium for planetarium.
Yeah.
So I had a planetarium in their home. And I'm walking through it, and I'm like, the planetarium is bigger than most people's homes. And you wake up and just walk into this? They have more plants. It was Jurassic Park up in there. and I remember just looking at it saying, wow, this is how people with means are really living. This person literally curated the thing they love most and put it in their home. Forget going to the museum or going to the zoo. They brought it home, right? Mm-hmm. They had a couple birds in there. I was like, wow, this is insane. But that's what they chose to do with the type of house they chose to buy and build. But do those things for yourself. I know individuals, they'll say, go to a car dealership, pretend I can get a new car. Sit in a Mercedes Benz. Right? It is what it is. I know it's quarantine, so I'm not trying to encourage bad behavior, but if you can travel safely and the place where you're going is open, take a short trip for 2 to 3 days somewhere. Bring your work with you, you have to, and experience a new environment. Switch up, change up a little bit, right? Be flexible. That's one of the most important things you can do if you're feeling stuck. The bottom line is the thoughts, the ideals, you probably know where I'm going with this. The thoughts, the ideals, and the activities that you've been involved in have brought you to this place that you're at now. And in order to change your circumstances, it's going to require new thoughts, new activities, new behaviors, new modus operandus, right? To change your circumstances. It's going to require all of that. Maybe it's time for you to start introducing new things and get out that comfort zone and be willing to be uncomfortable again. Not uncomfortable because you're tired and fatigued and your bones are hurting, but uncomfortable in the sense that you have to do some things that make you nervous and make you sweat again. Maybe it's time to do that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't. I was just gonna say, like, I don't have as perfectly put together. I don't really have. You put it right. Yeah. There's a lot of power in changing your physical environment when you can. I think it also goes back to, it's like, I'm also extremely introverted person. I start my day with a certain amount of energy, and every interaction or everything I have to do takes away from that energy. I don't always get energy from it. But even as a super introverted person, I can recognize and understand that this is not, the way we live now is not healthy, so, and I see that in myself, I can get energy from experiences too here and there, but for the most part, I start with my 5 spoons or coins or whatever you want to call it. And then once they're gone, they're gone. But yes, changing your physical surroundings, just even change where your office is if you can't leave. Go work in a different room if you can.
Yes. And, for the introverts that are listening, right? And, if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, how can you be doing something like what we're doing on a broadcast and be introverted, right? Look, you just don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes. When you're an introvert, you're thinking about stuff 24/7 around the clock. There's a million different things we want to talk about on this show, right? Being introverted does not mean you don't have a million different ideals and thoughts and value to share with the world. It's just you spend a lot of your time in your own thinking, right? And introverts tend to have what I like to refer to as an internal compass, right? So when you're introverted, at least I'll speak for myself and what I've observed in other people, you typically don't need outside things to get you going. You don't need outside things to motivate. Like, I don't watch videos and I don't really attend events anymore to get amped up. Trust me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm already on 10. I'm on 10 about something, right, when I wake up. But, to what you just said, Rochelle, when you're an introvert, you also have to make sure those things that are internal, that do matter to you, are being fed. You got to water yourself, right? If you're an introvert and you're feeling stuck, that means you haven't watered yourself, right? Introverts tend to be about their own values, their own personal beliefs, their own way of seeing the world, right? We want to kind of change things from the inside out, right? We have these things inside and we want to have an impact and curate the world outside of us. That's why creative people tend to be very introverted, right? What are the things you can do to water that creativity inside yourself to give yourself new energy? Once again, I don't want anyone to listen to this and think this is a call to quit. This is a call to pivot. This is a call to find ways to do things to give yourself energy again, so you can get off the floor, get off the chair, off the sofa, wherever you're sitting down at, give yourself energy to stand up and get to work and walking again. And something else I firmly believe in too, and I'll wrap up. You already know I'm looking at my to-do list, and I just saw 2 other items, but I'm gonna stop on this one. I think the world really does reward motion. The world rewards momentum and activity. That's when things start to happen, right? There's a physics term, it's called inertia, right? And once the item starts moving, it starts to build on its own energy.
Mm-hmm.
And, to kind of echo something that was said earlier, is it only takes one thing. You don't need to go out. This is not also called people go out and wholesale everything. Sometimes it takes one small adjustment, one little small thing, something a little bit different that puts you in activity again, and good things start to happen. I was having a conversation with a gentleman last night, and he was telling me about how he is reluctant to share his ideals and the things he's involved in with other people because he doesn't want thievery to occur or all this other stuff. And I told him, look, there's some merit to that. I understand. But at the same time, if you're trying to accomplish big things, you need other people.
Yeah.
You need feedback. You need ideals. You need to create advocates out there. Now, if you need to carry around the NDA around at all times and the confidentiality agreement, so be it. But you can't sit holed up in your cave and think, what's that thing I hear? If you build it, people will come? No.
No.
Yeah. No. Build it and promote it and let everyone in their mama know what it is you're doing. Then you'll get some good results. Mm-hmm. It's all right. I'll press pause there because I can go in on that part too.
Well, anyway, we're getting towards the end here of our time as it is. And again, with every topic we talk about, we could talk about it for hours on end. But hopefully this was helpful for you in the context of not necessarily giving you all the ideas and strategies and whatever of like, what pivoting can look like or whatnot, but it's just taking it from a different look of, this is a time of year where we're doing a lot of reflecting. We do it every year, pandemic or not, but we reflect back on how the year has gone and what we want for the future. And I think this year, especially, it's really important to do that now more than ever, because what we've learned is that everything can be taken away, changed, adjusted in a split second, literally. So if you're not living the life that you want, if you're not doing the things that make you happy, then it's just not going to be good, right? It's not going to end unless you change it. So whatever nuggets of wisdom that you took from this that are going to give you that energy to make that change, please share it with us. Please let us know. If you have your own strategies, please share that as well. And share this with anyone else that feel like could benefit from this. We have some incredible interviews coming up with some people that have not been on the channel yet. So please make sure you subscribe and sign up to our email list, whatever you need to do so you don't miss these